Hello, and this is like my favorite seat, so I'm always right there in that glare. So I'm doing my best to keep it behind me and excuse my hair. All right, so we're going to jump right into chapter 8. We've done 1 through 7, and we know that Annette is going through some mess right now as Mr. Boatwright has been like raping her now for a few years. She's threatened to tell him, and he has basically pulled the gun on her and threatened to kill her. So, right on into chapter 8. And by the way, if you are not too busy right now, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Please, 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 and thank you. Chapter 8. Over the years, Mama worked for a lot of rich white people in Richland I never got to meet. Then I met the employer she gave up all her commitments to work exclusively for, a retired judge named Bill Lawson. Judge Lawson was once one of Scary Mary's most frequent visitors and one of her closest friends. I had overheard her tell Mama that the judge was the main reason she always got out of trouble with just a talking to every time her house got raided. The judge was a tall, gray haired, barrel chested white man with a narrow face and a bushy mustache. He reminded me of Jed Clampett, one of my favorite programs at the time, the Beverly Hillbillies. He had the bluest eyes I had ever seen and thin lips that were always smiling. He lived in a big blue house on a hill with an enclosed swimming pool, and he owned houses all over town. Every time I saw him, he had on an expensive looking suit. How do you like school, Annette? Your mama tells me you get straight A's, he said to me one night when he dropped Mama off. I broke into a grin when he slapped a dollar bill into my anxious hand. Oh, I have some real good teachers, and I like to learn, I told him proudly, walking behind him as he strode like a cowboy across our living room floor. Mama and Judge Lawson sat down on our living room couch and popped open cans of beer. I sat on a chair across from them, caressing my dollar. Mr. Boatwright was in bed. Ever consider going into the teaching profession when the time comes? Judge Lawson asked, taking a long swig from his can. Oh no, Judge Lawson. I hope I can get a good secretarial job after I graduate, I replied excitedly. Well, if there's anything I can do to help, all you got to do is let me know and I'll fix it, he said firmly. Then he put his hand on Mama's knee and started rubbing it. Judge Lawson's offer impressed and stunned me, but I didn't take him seriously. I knew he was rich, didn't have any kids, and was not on good terms with his family. But he had a lot of friends. Mama told me that he entertained a lot. He often had lavish poker parties. Every time he did, Mama had to stay cooking and running around serving his guests. Something happened shortly after Judge Lawson's offer, and Mama was forced to call him for a favor. An inspector came snooping around our neighborhood, and our house was one of the ones he condemned because the place had extremely bad and dangerous wiring, termites, and roaches sliding up and down the walls, plaster falling from the ceiling, and holes everywhere he looked. We had 30 days to find a new place to live. Mama couldn't afford to take time off of work, so Mr. Boatwright and I went looking for a new house. We took buses when we could, but we did most of our searching on foot. With Mr. Boatwright's leg situation, it was long, exasperating. What an experience. Because of him, I couldn't walk as fast as I normally did, and every 10 or 15 minutes we had to find a bench for him to rest. The next day, we looked at 3 or more places. The ones we could afford looked worse than the one we were in and were located neighborhoods even rougher and more run down. I don't know what to do, Mama moaned one evening. She had just come in from work and still had on her coat. Her eyes appeared to be in pain. They were red and swollen from all the crying she had done over her naughty problem. We ain't got but 10 more days to vacate these premises. What happens if we don't move by then? I asked. I was on the living room couch with Mr. Boatwright. An hour earlier, he and I had prayed out loud on our knees, asking God to help us find the right house. With the worried look on his face, Mr. Boatwright replied, "That sheriff will come out with his crew, set our stuff on the ground, and put a lock on the door." Time was running out, and we still had not found a suitable house to move in. "What are we going to do, Mama?" I was getting scared. I was not that crazy about our house, but it was all we had. "Well, Scary Mary done already told me. I can stretch out a pallet on her living room floor. You can sleep with Mott. Brother Boatwright can pile up in the living room couch till we find a place." It was never discussed, but I knew that Mama was tired of having to fall back onto Scary Mary so often. I sure was. Scary Mary was the type of person who would eventually call her favors in. Whenever she wanted Mama to come and help entertain her male friends, Mama got kicking and screaming mad, but she went. "Blackmail. Scary Mary blackmailing me," Mama said under her breath to herself one day after getting off the phone with Scary Mary. "What did you say, Mama?" I had entered the kitchen just in time to hear her. "Nothing." She then sucked her breath and told me, "Go lay me out some clean step ins that ain't got no holes or ravels. Go to my bureau and dig out my black brassiere and iron my red dress." "That red dress you said was too short and too tight," I gasped, worried about what I had heard her say about Scary Mary blackmailing her. Mama looked away. "It ain't that short and it ain't that tight," she said. Her voice was cracking. Scary Mary now lived across the tracks in a huge green shingled house in a neighborhood with nothing but nice houses. With all the women working for her and the money the rich dead husband had left her, she could afford to. She had moved there several years earlier. It was the same neighborhood where our only black undertaker, our only black doctor, and one of the only black barbers lived. The rest of the neighborhood was white. I liked Scary Mary's house, but I didn't want to stay there even for a few days. I didn't want to live in that big, nice, comfortable place, then have to give it all back up to living in another falling down shack like the ones we've always rented. With just 5 days left for us to vacate, Mama came rustling into the house after Judge Lawson had dropped her off. "Annette, Brother Boatwright, y'all come quick." I ran from the kitchen to the living room where Mama was, wringing her hands and hopping around like she had to pee. Must be some good news. "What's wrong, Mama?" I gasped. Her hair was askew, her lipstick was smeared, and her dress was buttoned wrong. It looked like she had just been mauled. "What's going on?" Mr. Boatwright yelled, hobbling into the room from upstairs. "Y'all know that big house with the white aluminum siding on Reed Street, direct across from that colored undertaker, 1 block over from Scary Mary?" Mama shouted. "Yeah, the house with the buckeye tree sitting in the front yard." Mr. Boatwright arms folded and nodded. "What about it?" "The tenants moved out a few days ago and it's up for rent," Mama said, waving her arms like she was directing a 747. I had never seen Mama this excited before. There was a big smile on her face and she was sweating. "The rent must be 3 or 4 times what we pay here, Mama," I said evenly. "We can't afford to live in a place like that." "Oh, yes, we can afford it. I just found out it's one of Judge Lawson's properties. My Judge Lawson. I told him about our predicament, and right off he said he wouldn't stand by and let us get set out on the ground long as he living." Mama paused and scratched her head, then continued. "After all these years, the judge decided he didn't like the people living there. They was too hard to get along with and was always complaining about one thing or another. He said we can move in right away with no deposit and we can rent it for the same rent we pay here." Praise the Lord. Mr. Boatwright was so overwhelmed, he started shaking and sweating so hard, he had to sit down and compose himself. He snatched a handkerchief from his pocket and started fanning and wiping his face. "Judge Lawson's got 1 foot in the grave, Mama." "What if he dies next month?" I asked. "Well, Miss Smarty, that's already been considered. The judge promised me first thing in the morning he would have his lawyer revise his will saying me and mine can live in the Reed Street house, rent to never increase for as long as we want, Mama yelled. She dropped her tattered coat on the floor and started dancing like a tribeswoman around a ceremonial fire. Oh, we was all I could say as I rolled this information around in my head. I sat on the couch and started smiling. It sounded too good to be true. Why was Judge Lawson? Why would Judge Lawson do this for us? What's in it for him? I wanted to know. Mama stopped dancing her jig. A strange, faraway look appeared on her face. God told him to do it, I bet, she sighed. It ain't no wonder with the way we all been praying. Mr. Boatwright and I agreed with her, but I knew there was more to it than that. I'd seen Judge Lawson look at Mama the same way Mr. Boatwright often looked at me, like he just bought me by the pond. In June of that year, 1963, we moved across town to the house on Reed Street. It was a bigger place and much nicer than we had ever lived in. The front porch had a glider that came with the house. Not only was there a big buckeye tree in this spacious front yard, but there was also a gigantic weeping willow directly across the cobblestone walkway opposite the buckeye tree. Oh, excuse me. I felt like we just moved into Norman Rockwell's neighborhood. The floors in our new house had nice dark brown shaggy carpets. In the bright yellow kitchen, there was a stove we could turn on without using pliers like we had to do with our old one, a refrigerator that defrosted itself, and in that shone like new money on the floor. Our old neighborhood had lots of bars, and I saw drunk people staggering about and peeing on the ground in broad daylight. Our new neighborhood had only one bar, and my school was only a 10-minute walk from our house. Scary Mary's house was right behind ours on the next street over. Our backyards connected. She had a cherry tree, an apple tree, and a buckeye tree in her part of the yard. From my back bedroom window, I counted dozens of grim and well-dressed, most of them white men, in and out of her back door, just like when we lived with her. Our new house had 4 bedrooms. Mama took the largest one, which was the one downstairs. Mr. Boatwright took the one upstairs across from mine. Hold on, pause, because I read this before and I never discovered, because as a mother, as a woman, never in a million, gazillion, thousand, infinity years would I, having a strange man living in my house, stranger no strange, put that man in an area of the house with my daughter, and I'd be in a totally different area of the house. If anything, it only makes more sense to put me and my daughter together in the area and put this man somewhere else. Or put me and this man together in the area of the house and put my daughter somewhere else. It's all about nurturing and protecting, which is what we're supposed to do as mothers in particular. And so I just wanted to get that off of my chest real fast. And the 4th bedroom, the end of the long hallway, was to be used to store things, Mama said, like the brand new sewing machine Judge Lawson had ordered from Sears and Roebuck. I felt warm and secure in my new room, even though all I had in it was my lumpy bed, a big old chipped chiffero, and a nightstand with a gooseneck lamp on it, leaning over my bed like a sentinel. I livened up my room with colored pictures of stars from my movie magazines and dandelions I picked from the front yard. It didn't take me long to get used to our new neighborhood. It was cleaner, quieter, and safer than the one we had just moved from. For weeks, Mr. Boatwright didn't bother me for sex. I thought that he had gotten tired of me, or because of his age, his sex drive had run its course. But I was wrong. We're going to stop right there, and we will be picking up still in chapter 8 when I return, and it will be today. So See you later. Drop a comment down below. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down button. Either way, I appreciate the feedback. But more importantly, I'd like for you to hit the subscribe button. Share the video and tell a friend to join our book club. All right, I'll see you soon.